Welcome back to the deep dive. This time we're diving deep into a really fascinating celebration, Chinese New Year.
Yeah, and you found a really cool starting point, a YouTube video that uses the holiday to actually teach English.
Right. It's a fun twist on a language lesson. So before we get into the specifics, what's the first thing that pops into your mind when you think about Chinese New Year?
For me, it's the energy, the colors, the sounds, those feelings of new beginnings. But I know that's kind of broad. The video itself uses something way more concrete: dumplings.
Oh, dumplings. Who doesn't love a good dumpling? But the video makes a point of showing that they're more than just delicious food.
Yeah, exactly. It uses them to teach the word tradition. And that's where it gets interesting. They aren't just snacks, they're jiaozi, shaped like those old silver ingots, symbolizing wealth and prosperity for the coming year.
So you're literally shaping good fortune with every fold. Makes sense why the video shows families making them together. It's about way more than the food.
Right. And speaking of rituals meant to bring good fortune, the video shows the very loud tradition of setting off firecrackers, even shows someone being scared by the noise.
Yeah, that's sonic cleansing, as the video calls it. But is it really just about scaring away bad luck? That seems a little simplistic.
It might be the explanation you give to kids, but there's probably a deeper cultural meaning there. Think about it. Noise is a powerful thing. In many cultures, it's used to mark transitions to signal important moments.
You're right. Like a sonic punctuation mark on the old year, clearing the way for the new. And speaking of new beginnings, what about those red envelopes the video shows? The student in the video got almost $500. Is that typical, or is the video exaggerating for effect?
$500 is definitely on the high end, but red envelopes or hongbao are a big part of Chinese New Year. That bright red is all about good luck and prosperity, and the money inside is a way for elders to share their blessings with the younger generation.
So it's not about the money itself, it's about the symbolism and that generational aspect of the tradition. It really highlights the family focus of the holiday. Speaking of family and togetherness, the video also shows a group playing mahjong. Is it really as central to the holiday as it seems?
Absolutely. While the video uses it to teach words like play and game, mahjong during Chinese New Year is more than just a pastime. Think about those families making dumplings. It's that same idea of coming together, strengthening bonds.
Well, that's interesting. Seems like so much of this holiday is about strengthening social connections, whether it's through food, gifts, or even games. It makes you see how the video uses these examples to teach English while also subtly conveying those underlying cultural values.
It's really clever, right? The video isn't just teaching vocabulary. It's giving you a glimpse into the heart of the holiday.
Okay, so we've talked about dumplings, firecrackers, red envelopes, all things most people associate with Chinese New Year. But the video also briefly mentions dragon dances, something a little more visually spectacular.
Right. And those are really fascinating because they bring in the element of performance and spectacle. The video barely scratches the surface, though. It's more focused on teaching I'm excited about and I can't wait, which, to be fair, does capture that anticipation for the new year.
Yeah, it's like the language itself mirrors that feeling of excitement building up to the holiday. But you're right, those dragon dances deserve a deeper dive.
Definitely. We need to unpack the symbolism, the history, the artistry involved. There's a whole layer of meaning there that the video just hints at. And those vibrant costumes, those energetic movements, there's a reason they've become such iconic images of Chinese New Year.
It's like they embody the energy and spirit of the celebration itself. And the fact that they're meant to ward off evil spirits ties back into that theme of cleansing and renewal that we talked about earlier with the firecrackers.
Exactly, it's all connected. And speaking of interconnectedness, those dragon dances often involve entire communities coming together to participate or watch. It's not just a performance, it's a shared experience.
Which makes me wonder, the video focuses on individual experiences of the holiday, but how much does community involvement play into the celebrations?
That's a great question. It's a crucial aspect that the video doesn't really touch on. While family is at the heart of Chinese New Year, the celebrations often spill out into the streets, with parades, lion dances, which are different from the dragon dances, by the way, and community gatherings.
So it becomes this collective expression of joy and renewal, something everyone participates in, even if they're not directly celebrating the holiday themselves.
Right, and that communal aspect is something we need to explore further. It adds another layer to understanding the cultural impact of Chinese New Year.
Okay, so we've talked about the sights and sounds, the food and rituals. But what about the traditional clothing people wear during Chinese New Year? The video just shows people in everyday clothes, but I'm guessing there's a lot more to it.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking vibrant colors, intricate designs, symbolism woven into every garment. It's a visual feast in itself. The video, with its language learning focus, doesn't really go there, but traditional attire is a huge part of marking the occasion.
It's like another layer of expression, right? Just like the food and the decorations, the clothing reflects the spirit and symbolism of the holiday.
Exactly. And we definitely need to unpack that from the elegant xiansams to the majestic dragon robes. There's a whole world of tradition and artistry to explore.
Speaking of tradition and artistry, I'm noticing a pattern here. Everything we've talked about, from the dumplings to the dragon dances, has this deeper layer of meaning and symbolism. It seems like the video, even though it's focused on language, is subtly teaching us to look beyond the surface of the celebration.
That's a great observation. It's like
Right.
it's prompting us to ask,
Yeah.
what's the story behind these traditions? Why are they so important? What they reveal about the culture that created them?
Right. It's making me want to dig even deeper into the historical and cultural roots of this holiday.
Me too. We need to go beyond just what's visible in the video and explore the WHY behind the what. How did these traditions evolve? What myths and legends are they connected to? How have they changed over time?
It's like we're starting to see a whole new dimension to this seemingly simple YouTube video about Chinese New Year.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of a deep dive. It's about peeling back the layers and discovering the hidden depths beneath the surface. It's about connecting the dots and seeing the bigger picture.
And in this case, that bigger picture is about understanding not just the traditions themselves, but the cultural values, beliefs, and history that they represent. It's about seeing Chinese New Year not just as a celebration, but as a window into an entire culture.
Beautifully put. And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. It's not just about learning facts, it's about expanding our understanding of the world and the people in it.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've explored the key elements showcased in the video, from the delicious dumplings to the symbolic red envelopes and the vibrant dragon dances.
And we've started to peel back the layers, questioning simplistic explanations and recognizing the interconnectedness of these traditions with deeper cultural values and beliefs.
But this is just the beginning. There's so much more to uncover, from the historical roots of Chinese New Year to the evolution of its traditions and the social and economic impact of this global celebration.
So stay tuned as we continue our deep dive in part 2. We'll be exploring those fascinating layers, connecting the dots, and revealing the hidden depths beneath the surface of this captivating cultural phenomenon. Welcome back to the deep dive. Last time we were talking about how even a simple YouTube video can be a jumping off point for some pretty deep cultural exploration.
Right. And we're about to go even deeper. We've touched on some key elements of Chinese New Year dumplings, firecrackers, those eye-catching dragon dances, but now I'm really curious about the historical and cultural roots of this whole celebration.
It's fascinating stuff. You remember how the video was using Chinese New Year to teach English? Well, if we kind of flip that around, we can use the history of the holiday to better understand the culture itself.
Okay, I like that. So where do we even begin? The video mentioned something about it being a lunar festival.
Exactly. Chinese New Year, or Spring Festival, as it's also known, is based on the lunisolar calendar. That means it's tied to the cycles of the moon, usually falling between late January and mid-February.
Which makes sense considering the video highlighted those themes of new beginnings and fresh starts.
Right, it's not just a random date on the calendar. This is about aligning with the natural world, celebrating the end of winter and the promise of spring. We're talking thousands of years of agricultural tradition tied into this idea of rebirth and renewal.
So it's more than just a party. It's a deeply rooted cultural practice. It makes me wonder how those traditions evolved over time. Did ancient Chinese New Year celebrations look anything like what we see today?
That's where it gets really interesting. While those core values of family, community, and hope have remained constant, the specific traditions have definitely evolved over millennia. Think about it. China has seen dynasties rise and fall, cultural exchange with other nations, all shaping how the holiday is celebrated.
I'm picturing those dragon dances. Are those as ancient as the holiday itself, or did they come later?
Those are actually a bit newer, believed to have originated during the Han Dynasty, around 200 BC. But even they've changed over time, with different regions developing their own unique styles and variations.
So it's not just one static tradition, it's constantly evolving, adapting, picking up new influences along the way, kind of like the language itself.
Exactly. And speaking of language, remember how the video was teaching phrases like, "I'm so excited and I can't wait"? It got me thinking, how do you express that same sense of anticipation in Mandarin? I bet there are some really interesting cultural nuances there.
That's a great point. while the video focuses on English, it makes you realize there's a whole other layer of cultural expression embedded in the Chinese language.
Right. For example, the phrase guo nian, which literally means passing the year, also carries the weight of celebrating and enjoying the holiday. It's not just about time passing, it's about actively embracing the festivities.
That's a subtle but important distinction. It highlights how language and culture are so intertwined, how even simple phrases can reveal deeper cultural values.
Absolutely. And it makes me wonder how else the language shapes the experience of Chinese New Year. The greetings, the stories shared, the traditional songs, there's a whole world of cultural expression waiting to be explored there.
Okay, I'm officially adding learn some Mandarin to my to-do list. But for now, let's get back to the traditions themselves. We talked about those spectacular dragon dances, but what about the quieter, more personal rituals? The video doesn't really touch on those.
That's a good point. While the video focuses on the big visual elements, there are tons of smaller, often family-specific customs that make up the fabric of the holiday.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, one tradition I find fascinating is walking the bridge on the 7th day of the new year. It's believed to symbolize crossing over from bad luck to good fortune.
That's interesting. So even within this one holiday, there are these micro celebrations, each with their own symbolism and rituals.
Right. It's like a series of nested traditions, each adding another layer of meaning and complexity. And it reminds us that even within a single culture, there can be tremendous diversity and regional variations in how these celebrations are practiced.
Which brings me back to something we touched on earlier, the community aspect of Chinese New Year. The video mainly focused on individuals and families, but you mentioned how the celebrations often spill out into the streets, involving the wider community.
Exactly. It's not just about individual families celebrating in their homes. Chinese New Year is a time for strengthening social bonds, for reaffirming those connections that make up the fabric of a community.
I can imagine the energy of those celebrations, the parades, the lion dances, the streets filled with people. It must be quite a spectacle.
It is, and it's not just about spectacle. Think about the social impact of everyone coming together, sharing food, exchanging greetings, participating in those communal rituals. It strengthens a sense of belonging, reinforces cultural identity, and helps pass those traditions down to the next generation.
It's like the whole community becomes part of the celebration, contributing to that shared energy and sense of renewal. And speaking of shared energy, remember how we were talking about the cultural significance of noise in Chinese New Year? That sonic cleansing with the firecrackers really got me thinking.
It's more than just making a racket, isn't it? There's a deeper cultural layer there, like we were saying earlier.
Right, and it's not just limited to firecrackers. Think about the drums, the gongs, the cymbals used in those lion and dragon dances. It's a whole symphony of sound.
Exactly. And in many cultures, noise is believed to have a spiritual dimension. The power to dispel negative energy, awaken dormant spirits, attract good fortune. It's like a sonic reset button, clearing the way for the new year.
So it's not just about creating a festive atmosphere, it's about actively shaping the energy of the new year through sound.
Right. And it makes you wonder about the psychological impact of all that noise, the excitement it generates, the sense of release, the feeling of being part of something bigger than yourself.
It's like a collective catharsis, a shared experience that binds people together. And speaking of shared experiences, the video really emphasized the family aspect of Chinese New Year. Those multi-generational gatherings, making dumplings together, exchanging red envelopes.
It really hit home how central family is to this celebration, didn't it?
Yeah.
And it's not just about being together physically. It's about those deeper connections, the stories shared, the traditions passed down, the sense of belonging that comes from being part of something bigger than yourself.
Right. And it made me think about the role those family traditions play in shaping our identities, our values, our understanding of the world. It's like those traditions become part of our DNA, passed down from one generation to the next.
It's like those traditions become a living history of the family, a tapestry woven from stories, rituals, shared experiences. And that's something that transcends cultures, whether it's Chinese New Year or any other holiday. Those family traditions help create a sense of continuity, of belonging, of connection to something greater than ourselves.
It's fascinating how something as simple as making dumplings together can become a powerful ritual, a way to connect with your heritage and strengthen family bonds.
Right. It's not just about the food itself. It's about the act of creating something together,
Yeah.
sharing stories, passing down knowledge and skills. It's about those unspoken connections that form when you work side by side, kneading dough, shaping dumplings, laughing, and maybe even getting a little flour on your face.
It's those little moments, those shared experiences that make these traditions so powerful and meaningful. And it makes me appreciate how the video, even though it's focused on language learning, subtly captures that sense of family and tradition.
It's a reminder that language is more than just words and grammar. It's a vehicle for culture, for sharing experiences and values. And when it comes to something like Chinese New Year, those cultural nuances are embedded in every phrase, every ritual, every shared story.
Okay, so we've talked about family traditions, but what about the broader social dynamics at play during Chinese New Year? The video showed a bit of that with the red envelopes, that exchange between elders and younger generations. But I'm curious about the role of gift giving in general.
That's a great point. Gifts giving is a huge part of Chinese New Year, and it goes beyond just those red envelopes. It's about expressing care, strengthening relationships, reinforcing social hierarchies.
So those gifts aren't just random presents, they carry a lot of social weight and meaning.
Absolutely. Think about the symbolism of what's being given: fruits for good health, sweets for a sweet year, tea for hospitality. It's a whole language of gift giving that reflects cultural values and strengthens social bonds.
I'm starting to see how even the seemingly simple act of giving a gift during Chinese New Year is layered with cultural significance.
Right. It's not just about the material object, it's about the meaning behind it, the intention it conveys, this social dynamics it reinforces. And that's something that's often overlooked when we view these traditions from the outside.
It's like we're starting to see the invisible threads that connect everything in the celebration, from the food to the rituals to the social interactions.
And those threads tell a story about family community tradition and the enduring human desire to connect with something bigger than ourselves.
And speaking of connecting with something bigger, we can't ignore the fact that Chinese New Year isn't just a celebration within China, it's a global phenomenon.
That's an important point.
Hmm.
The video focused on celebrations within China, but we need to acknowledge the millions of people around the world who celebrate Chinese New Year, each bringing their own unique cultural perspectives and adaptations to the tradition.
So it becomes this incredible tapestry of cultural exchange, a fusion of traditions and influences that reflects the global reach of Chinese culture.
Exactly. And that raises some fascinating questions. How have Chinese communities abroad adapted these traditions to their new environments? How do they maintain those cultural connections across geographical boundaries? What does it mean to celebrate Chinese New Year as part of a diaspora community?
It's like a whole other layer of the deep dive is opening up, exploring not just the traditions themselves, but the ways they evolve and adapt as they travel across the globe.
Right. And that's something we need to explore further. It's about understanding the dynamism of culture, how it's constantly evolving, adapting, and yet retaining its core essence.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this second part of our deep dive. We've delved into the historical roots of Chinese New Year, explored the linguistic nuances of expressing anticipation in Mandarin, uncovered the symbolism behind quieter, family-specific traditions, and touched on the global reach and adaptation of this celebration.
And we've started to appreciate the interconnectedness of it all, how every element, from the food to the rituals to the social interactions, weaves together a rich tapestry of cultural meaning and significance.
But we're not done yet. There's still so much more to uncover, so many fascinating threads to pull.
Stay tuned for part 3 of our deep dive, where we'll continue to explore the complexities of Chinese New Year, connecting the dots and revealing the hidden depths of this captivating cultural phenomenon.
Welcome back to the deep dive. I don't know about you, but after all that, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by all the layers we've uncovered about Chinese New Year.
It is a lot to take in, right? We've gone from dumplings to ancient calendars to the sonic power of firecrackers.
Yeah.
But that's what makes this deep dive so rewarding, seeing this seemingly familiar holiday in a whole new light.
Right, and it's amazing how much depth we've found, all starting from that YouTube video, using the holiday to teach English. Speaking of the video, it got me thinking about something else. It showed how excited people are for the new year, but it didn't really explore the concept of auspiciousness that's so central to Chinese culture.
That's a great point. The video focused on basic expressions of excitement, but there's a whole other layer of cultural meaning tied to the idea of attracting good fortune and warding off bad luck.
Right, like we talked about red being a lucky color, but I'm guessing there's a lot more to it than just that.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking a whole system of symbolism, numbers, animals, specific actions, all aimed at creating an auspicious environment for the new year. For example, you'll often see decorations featuring gold ingots, which symbolize wealth and prosperity. And the number 8 is considered extremely lucky because it sounds similar to the word for fortune in Chinese.
So it's like a language of symbols, each element carefully chosen to invite good luck and positive energy into the new year.
Exactly. And it's not just about decorations. There are also specific actions people take, like cleaning the house before New Year's Eve to sweep away bad luck, or avoiding certain activities during the first few days of the new year, like sweeping or washing your hair, so as not to wash away good fortune.
It's fascinating how these beliefs are so ingrained in the culture, influencing everything from home decor to everyday behavior during the holiday.
Right. And it makes you realize how much cultural knowledge is packed into even the simplest actions and symbols. It's like a secret code that you need to unlock to truly understand the deeper meaning of the celebration.
Speaking of unlocking deeper meaning, something else that really struck me in the video was the focus on family traditions, making dumplings together, sharing stories, passing down those red envelopes.
Those moments really highlight the heart of the holiday, don't they? It's about those intimate connections, those shared experiences that create a sense of belonging and continuity across generations.
And it's not just about sentimentality, it's about transmitting cultural knowledge and values, isn't it? Like we talk about storytelling being a big part of Chinese New Year. But what kinds of stories are typically shared?
Well, think about it. This is a time for reflection, for looking back on the past year and looking ahead to the new one. So families often share stories about their ancestors, family history, and personal experiences that reflect those core values of resilience, perseverance, and the importance of family unity.
It's like passing down a living history of the family, reminding younger generations of where they come from and the values that shape their identity.
Right. And those stories aren't just lectures. They're often told with humor, warmth, and a touch of nostalgia. It's about entertaining, yes, but also about instilling those values and creating a sense of shared identity.
It makes me realize that those stories are like invisible threads connecting generations, weaving together a tapestry of family history and cultural memory.
Beautifully put. And it's a reminder that these traditions are more than just rituals. They're powerful tools for cultural transmission, for keeping those stories and values alive.
Okay, we've talked a lot about the traditions themselves, but what about the modern world? How has technology impacted the way people celebrate Chinese New Year? The video showed people using their phones, but it didn't really delve into that aspect.
That's a crucial point, and one that often gets overlooked. Technology has definitely changed the landscape of the celebration, especially for those who live far from family or emigrated to other countries.
Like we talked about sending digital greetings and virtual red envelopes, but does that really replace the in-person experience?
That's a complex question. On one hand, technology allows people to stay connected and maintain those traditions, even when separated by distance. But it's important to acknowledge the potential downsides. Some argue that digital interactions lack the warmth and personal touch of face-to-face gatherings.
It's like that debate about handwritten letters versus emails. The sentiment might be the same, but the medium changes the experience.
Right. It's about finding a balance, using technology to enhance those connections without losing the essence of personal interaction. Maybe it's about adding a personal voice message to that digital greeting, or having a video call with family while making dumplings in your own kitchen.
It's about being mindful of how we use technology, making sure it serves to strengthen those bonds rather than replacing them entirely.
Exactly. And technology isn't just about communication, it's also shaping the celebrations themselves. Think about the elaborate light shows and multimedia displays that are now part of many Chinese New Year festivities, especially in larger cities.
So it's not just about preserving the old ways, it's about adapting and integrating new technologies to create a modern expression of tradition.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder how these celebrations will continue to evolve in the future as technology advances and global connections become even more intertwined.
It's exciting to think about the possibilities. But for now, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive. We've explored so much: the food, the rituals, the symbolism, the historical and cultural context, even the impact of technology.
It's been quite a journey, and it's amazing how much we've uncovered, all starting from a simple YouTube video about learning English.
Right. It just goes to show that even the most seemingly mundane things can be doorways to fascinating discoveries and deeper understanding.
Absolutely. It's all about having that curiosity, that willingness to ask questions, to look beyond the surface and explore the layers of meaning beneath.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Chinese New Year, I want to leave our listeners with a challenge. The next time you encounter something that sparks your interest, something that seems ordinary or everyday, take a moment to pause and ask yourself, what's the story behind this? What can I learn from it? How can I deepen my understanding of the world around me?
Beautifully said. Because you never know where that curiosity might lead you, what hidden depths you might uncover, or what fascinating connections you might make.
And that's the essence of the deep dive, exploring those depths, making those connections, and discovering the richness and complexity of the world we live in. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and until next time, keep diving deep.